Hello, welcome to July 4th, 2023. It's a Tuesday. My name is Kurt, and this is my Good Life meditation video. This is an exercise that I perform every morning, a little bit after waking up. Right now it's exactly 4:45 a.m. I do this exercise to remember my life objectives and principles, those which are outlined in my book, Going Alone. I also use this time to think about the last 24 hours, including last night, to see how I did with the challenges and opportunities that I met, including during my sleep, if I could, in particular, my not sleep, if anything kept me up at night and caused me difficulty in resting. I finished them by thinking about the day to come and trying to foresee any challenges or opportunities I might meet and to prepare accordingly, and of capital importance, to help myself to prepare for the unexpected, the things that I don't foresee coming. Let's begin. First, last night and yesterday. Slept pretty good last night. Relatively speaking. It was another night with fireworks. Today's the 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to my fellow Americans and residents of the United States. Yesterday being the 3rd and the day before that being the 2nd seems to be reason enough to enjoy fireworks here in Huntington Beach. And there were pretty much fireworks all night long. All evening long, right up until maybe at 10 or 11 p.m. Amazing how many fireworks there were. Like it was the 4th of July proper. And I was told by my neighbors that would be the case. Loud, big fireworks. So the dogs had a little tricky sleeping, especially the white dog, Rudy. So I was up caring for him. Actually sat up with him for a long time, just comforting him. And we did give him a tranquilizer, but that had only limited effect. Eventually he settled down. The day was a good day, good solid day of work. In fact, I worked a lot. It was a quiet day. Most of my meetings were canceled because it was a Monday between a weekend and a Tuesday holiday. So a lot of people took the Monday off, and either my meetings, there were very few people in my meetings, or they were canceled outright by the people that I was, the sponsors, etc. So, but I did get a lot of work done, got real well caught up, and in fact, I could almost go so far as to say I didn't get enough done. But it was a good day, and then I had just a really nice day otherwise. Good walks with the wife, good dinner, nice evening, sitting in the garden reading. I had a nice time. That was pretty much my day. No particular challenges or opportunities of note. But I did forget to read my poem, didn't I? Yeah. I usually begin this exercise with a poem. And this morning I'm going to read, for the second time, a poem that by John Keats, titled "Lines Rhymed in a Letter Received" by J.H. Reynolds, and received from J.H. Reynolds, in parentheses, from Oxford. I read this one yesterday, but I didn't fully understand it, so I had to study it a little more. I get it now, although I had to look up a few more vocabulary items. Here we go. So first, some of these words might be familiar. I had to look them up to make sure I understood just what they meant. Gothic is the first word. I did understand the meaning. Gothic has various meanings, but in particular, it refers to a type of architecture. So in this case, an old Gothic church. Doric is, of course, a type of a classic column. The fluted column with the cap at the top. Crozier, I had to look up that word. It's the staff that like a bishop or someone of a high office in the Christian church would carry with it. Has a little thing at the top that represents like a shepherd's cross. Not cross isn't the right word. There's a word for it. It starts with the C. The thing that you can gather the sheep. And then there's another word, hosier. William the Hosier. Hosier literally is sock maker. Then there was a black tasseled trencher. Trencher is a mortar board, or the old cap of a professor, right, with a tassel. Chantry boy. Chantry boy would be like a choir boy. And then dominant, I still don't know it. I looked that up. I thought it was Latin. I still haven't found it, but I think it means like dominant, like at the top of the hierarchy in Latin. And then yesterday I talked about the word benison, which is a blessing. Now that I understand this vocabulary, the poem makes perfect sense. It's referring to probably with less than flattering tones to the clergymen, and they're in their cloistered church with all the things around it, and then the choir, and then the blessing that they give, and the reference to the fact that they're kept fatted and maintained by the population at large, and if there's if there's venison, then the blessing will be short so they can get to their feast. It's not a very flattering poem. Here we go. And I believe that Keats was inspired to write this after he read a letter from J.H. Reynolds, who was one of Keats's main correspondents in life. And then here it is. The Gothic looks solemn. The plain Doric column supports an old bishop and crossier. The mouldering arch, shaded over by a larch, stands next door to Wilson the hosier. Vice, that is, by turns, o'er pale faces mourns. The black tasseled trencher and common hat. The chantry boy sings, the steeple bell rings, and as for the chancellor, dominat. There are plenty of trees and plenty of ease, and plenty of fat deer for parsons. And when it is venison, short is the benison, then each on a leg or thigh fastens. That's it. Wow, so I like that first part, the Gothic column, the plain Doric, the Gothic looks solemn, the Gothic church, the plain Doric column supports the bishop and crossier, so maintaining the bishop, with the church, and the mouldering arch shaded over by a large, a big tree stands next door to Wilson the hosier, so the church is right next to the business of William the sockmaker. Vice, and I think it really is vice. That is by turns over pale face mourn. So imagine the bishop, I think it's a bishop in this case, as with reference, frowning over all the sinners. The black tasseled trencher, the professor along with the common hat. The chantry boy sings, the choir boy sings, the steeple bell rings, ding, ding, and for the chancellor, dominat. I don't know what chancellor. I know what a chancellor is, I think. High office, right? There are plenty of trees and plenty of ease and plenty of fat deer for parsons. And when it is venison, there's fresh meat, fresh deer meat. Short is the blessing, the venison, then each on a leg or a thigh fastens. I love it. It was worth the 2 days of effort to get that poem. Okay, what's left? The Good Life Creed now. So my Good Life Creed consists of 7 objectives and 34 principles. I developed these to help me to live my life after coming back from the adventure of going alone, when I knew that my destiny was home, and I needed a means and mechanism by which I could live better. Not being a religious man, I couldn't turn to the 10 Commandments or anything like that. Even though I do read the Bible daily, I knew that was not the route for me, and philosophy at large seemed to suggest that it would be prudent for one to do their own homework, do their hard work. So I did. So I set out to create the Good Life Creed. It's outlined in my book, Going Alone, in the chapter titled The Good Life. It is as follows. 7 objectives. These are the things that I'm striving for. Number 1 is to be always ready to die. That means that I have my life affairs, my relationships, and my personal objectives, my personal mission in life complete. If not done, as I like to say, done, if not finished. So I can continue on. Doesn't mean I have to stop, but it's in a settled state. And my life is, definitely. I like to think that I can step out of life. I can step out. There's nowhere to go. That I will die, pass away any moment, and my affairs in order. and my relationships are in order, and my life's work is in a settled state, and it is. Great peace of mind that comes from that. Number 2, my second objective is to make good and effective use of my time so that I'm not wasting my days, frittering them away, but making good use of every day. My third objective is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That is these very 7 objectives and 34 principles I'm relating now. And I do that by this daily exercise of working on them. I also think about them through the day, largely while I'm walking, especially if I'm alone. Next is to cultivate good emotional reactions, to make myself into someone who reacts well to the unexpected circumstances. I'm getting very good at that. I'm getting very adept now at foreseeing when challenges are in my face and arming myself to react well. It's pretty rare that I get ambushed anymore. It still does happen though. Next, and I think this is number 5, is to perform good actions, just to do good things throughout the day. Number 6 is to recognize my true limits and true opportunities so that I'm reaching for things within my grasp and letting things beyond my pale scope of capability, letting them go by. Or if I need to, I'll act on them in a more tangential manner, expecting my influence to reach them by waves rather than direct grasping. Awkward way to say it, but I think the point comes across. And then the number 7, the last objective, is to do just one thing at a time and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. No multitasking, or as little as possible. Now for my 34 principles, which begin with number 1, the principle of war, which means that I need to always be fighting against things that are proposed to me as true, as well as fighting against the things that I already hold as true. 2, the principle of reason, and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, doubt, and humiliation. To use reason as my tool to better understand what is actually true in the world. To be honest with myself, objective in my view. To be a fierce skeptic, and to be ready to embrace the seeming humiliation of discovering where I'm wrong. Next is, and these next 2 principles go together, the homunculus and the anchor hold. The homunculus is my suggestion that there is no such thing as a soul. All we have is this consciousness. And the anchor hold is my reminder that the consciousness is trapped within my skull. It won't get out of my nervous system. It will die with me. Next comes the home of good and evil. If our consciousness exists within us, and if there is no God and no absolute right and wrong, then that means that right and wrong, good and evil, are ideas that we hold and that we share with others. And it's incredibly important that we work on those ourselves. We have to take responsibility for what we think is right and wrong, and the actions that we take accordingly. We can't just accept it on high. We have to work hard at it. The home of good and evil is within our brains. Opinions. Subjective at their core. Next comes the principle of purpose. I have 4 purpose, if that's a word. Number 1 is biology, to fulfill my biological mandate to reproduce and make a kid and get that kid to adulthood, and I have. 2, duty, this is the first time I've ever spoke of this one, I added it to the book. Maybe I talked about it in one video earlier, but actually added it to the good life. This is the first time the sub-principle of duty has appeared. Duty suggests that each of us owes society a piece of flesh. In my case, at this current time, pre-AI really hitting the world and impacting the world, I consider that 30 years of our lives we have to dedicate to giving into the system. And I use that measure by virtue of the fact that that's typically what it takes between, if you have a good solid work life, finishing your education, taking a little time off for an adventure, and then starting work in earnest at age 30, retiring around age 60. That's 30 years. 30 years of flesh. Add to that 25 years for every child that we have, ending when our last child turns 25. It doesn't mean you can absolutely just cut them off. You get the idea. It's a rough figure. It's meant to be a term of caution too for those that wait too long to have children. Because if you start your career at 30 and then have your kid at 40, your last kid at 40, then you're talking about 65, you're finished. Or if it's later than that, if it's at 50, it's 75. Wow, watch out, right? Because the 25, the clock starts again after the last kid is born. Might want to take a break later in life. You might not have a chance to if you don't do it that way, or at least if you abide these principles. But I don't expect anybody else to abide them. I wrote them for me, but you're welcome to them if you like. Okay, that was duty, and then virtue is this third sub-principle of purpose, and virtue is just to be a virtuous man, pursuing the improvement of the well-being of thinking creatures, namely animals that can suffer. It's a long way to say reducing suffering. Undo suffering might be the better way to say it. And then last is, what is the last one? Oh yeah, whatever personal mission I choose for my life. And for me, it's the sharing of my story of my book going along. The pointy end of the spear is every book that I can sign, illustrate, and send out, which maybe I can do some of that today. I need to. Okay, so there's all that. Next is the atomic principle. Everything is made of bits and pieces, including us, falling to pieces. Then the principle of nature. Everything and everyone has some particular nature, and it's good to recognize what that is so we can adjust and live accordingly, not expecting more of others and things than the way they are. Then comes the pirate ride. I don't believe in free will. I think that I don't believe in fate either, or destiny, but I do believe that we are part and parcel of the universe and being jostled around by the forces of nature. So much so that they largely cancels out any sense of free agency on our part. Then comes the principle of maturity, and the sub-principles of wisdom, fortitude, and integrity. Maturity is that state that we reach when we're wise enough to remember our past and recognize our past successes and failures. We have the fortitude to do better, to avoid the mistakes, and to build upon the successes, and then the integrity of a life lived in accordance with our values. Next comes the social principle and the sub-principles of diplomacy, justice. See if I can't remember, I can look them up. It's been a while since I've done the whole thing. It's in that chapter, like I said. Oh yeah, diplomacy, justice, and conspiracy. I was almost there. Diplomacy is what we have to do to work together to come up with an idea about what our better social ends are. Remember, this is the social principle. Justice is the aim that we seek to achieve, and conspiracy is the effort that we do, locking arms with our fellows to build the better city. Then comes the principle of family and the sub-principle of catalyst. Simple recommendation to build a family. It can be the type you put a ring on, or it can be the type that's simply decided friends. In any case, having a family serves as a catalyst to our better living. We're more likely to weather the difficult bits for the sake of our children and the people we love than if we were all on our own. Then comes public speaking. I'm cheating now. And the sub-principles of best words, prudence, felicity, eloquence, literature, rumor, and gossip. Best words are to cultivate a rich and deep vocabulary and then to use it well, not in a showy way, but in a good way. Mostly with regard to our reading, to be armed with a good vocabulary so that we can read well. Prudence is our ability to filter our communication with our values. Filter it through our values so that it comes out in our what we say and write is in alignment with what's important to us. Felicity is the ability to flavor our communication with our emotions just so. Eloquence, of course, comes with practice and modeling. Literature, of course, is the foundation and substrate of a good mind, or a good mind seasoned with the best that humanity has to offer. And then rumor and gossip are two things, nasty things to avoid. Next comes a series of 5 principles that go together. Temperance, life will not go well. The horror show, that which must be borne. The feast of offal. Temperance is our ability to control our consumption of all things. Life will not go well is a reminder that life's going to be tough. The horror show is a further reminder that sometimes life goes really south into the horrifying ends. It's coming for all of us, and it's probably happening to those around us to various degrees. That which must be borne speaks to the fact that what we have to bear, so we have to bear through it to the end. And then the feast of offal is what we choose to do when we throw out the waste and byproduct of our suffering onto others. I recommend to avoid that. Then comes a twofer, the principle of distraction and the great indifference. Distraction is what we do to keep ourselves busy and occupied so that we don't have to face down the lack of evidence for God, which is the great indifference. The great indifference is the deep emptiness of the universe without overarching guiding agency. Distraction is what we do so that we don't have to see that, because we don't want to think that we're alone and that it all rests on our shoulders. To be grown up and work hard. The best seat in the house is to be content with who we are, where we are, and what we're doing. The restless, there's another now, here's a threefer. The fourfer, the restless man, the path of wildness, the great life adventure, and the risk of avoiding risk. The restless man and the sub-principle of diminished potency. Why did I call it that? I forgot why I added that sub-principle. This is somewhere. Diminished potency. Maybe I'm referring to, I'm referring to the restless man speaks to our late teens, early 20s, and then the years beyond, when we feel this restlessness to do something. And there's a danger in putting that off or just ignoring it, because diminished potency, it has a diminished effect the longer we wait. If we put that off till our 50s and go on a cruise, it's not going to be the same as backpacking across Asia in our 20s would have been, in terms of capacity and influence on our overall lives. So watch out. It's good to do it. Take care of that early. I recommend after university and between settling into your main life, your career, etc., get married, etc. Next comes the path of wildness. The path of wildness is the juncture and byway by which we embark upon a new life. The great life adventure, and you know when you're on it. It's easy to find. It's the course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. That's the path of wildness. The great life adventure is what comes of embarking upon the path of wildness. It's the gain and the yield of an adventurous life. The risk of avoiding risk speaks to the challenge of balancing taking risks with security, finding some ground between that will allow us to enjoy the building of a story, to having the adventure, and also being able to raise a family if we choose to do so, to have a family, to have a partner, and to eventually be able to settle down and retire, which is, if you're not careful, you won't be able to do that, and that's a real risk. And the sub-principles here are risk management, to manage the risk so we don't wind up having to work forever or having missed the adventure in life. And then a strange sub-principle here called to err on the side of family. That simply speaks to, if you're going to make a mistake, take an adventure or focus on your family and you're a young person, after you've started a family, err on the side of family. It'll be worth it in the end, even if you miss a lot otherwise. Next comes sin and damnation. I can feel my dog's getting restless. I better wrap this up. Sin and damnation. I don't believe in any God or gods or heaven or hell or any of that, but I do believe that you can sin against a good life, and these sins include, the sins are falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, authority, rumor, and gossip. Falsity is being untrue, a liar. Credulity is believing things too readily or easily. Faith is belief based on belief, which is nonsense. Superstition, enough said. Dogma, belief based on an institution or a way of life. Authority, belief founded upon the charisma or the seeming authority of an institution or agency. And then rumor and gossip are nasty because they're nasty. Complete oblivion. When we're dead, there'll be no final reunion with the loved ones we love, and no final reconciliation without reunion, and no final justice. Because there's no soul, no God, no heaven, no hell, no afterlife. Just this one life that we get, for better or worse. The season of philosophy, that's next. Just as a reminder to keep a pen and paper handy to write down the words as they come. Script writing is the ability to forecast the seconds, minutes, hours, and days or weeks ahead to plan out how we will live. Bullseye aim is a reminder to expect to miss the mark. The uphill climb, completing each day a little higher up the great mountain than the day before. Better view, the mountain that goes really nowhere but up. Arena and utility. Life is an arena for the development of objectives and principles for better living. The principle of fun. No. Nothing is enough. A deep suggestion towards emptiness. This is a principle that I think I'll be working on when I get to Japan. I know the basic foundation of it. It's a suggestion towards finding peace and happiness even in a simple life. But I know there's more. I know I can really delve in when I get back to Japan, and I will. But even if I don't, it's enough said with simple life. And then the last principle is the principle of fun. Reminder to enjoy today and the remembrance of yesterday and the anticipation of tomorrow. And there, I got through the good life. First time in a while that I've done the whole deep run. Now, as for today, to finish things off, it's a day off, like I said. I'll finish this video, type up my words, upload it, read my Bible, edit a page of Freeway Bible Study. I'll throw in the dogs are going to want to be fed. I'll feed them. Then I'll do my blog, update my YouTube comments, update all my comments on social media. And then I think I'll settle in for a nice day with my wife. We'll go watch the parade later. And then hopefully do a lot of reading today and make a trip to the beach. That's it. I wish you all the best. Be safe, but not too safe. And with that, my life now is done, if not finished. See ya.